Right, welcome to Engaging Industry Partners to Create Authentic Learning Experiences. In our experience, we've witnessed that the use of authentic partnerships have opened learning opportunities and connections that would be difficult to predict or plan in the typical classroom setting. As the principal and instructional coach of an early college high school that was typically project-based, and now as architects of PBL and career education in the virtual space, we learned a great deal about what works and what doesn't work when it comes to using authentic industry partners. Hi, my name is Mike Dardaris. I'm the Senior Director of Career Readiness for Destinations Career Academies at K-12. Along with my colleague and Educational Yoda, National Board Certified and Instructional Methods Advisor at K-12, Heather Buskirk. We're excited and honored to welcome you to a discussion around engaging industry partners to create authentic learning experiences. Today, we'd like to share what we have learned in regards to the powers of partnerships. During this webinar, we'll be hitting 6 points that we hope will help you connect to industry partners and to your students in an engaging, authentic way. 1, why authentic partnerships are important. 2, what we have learned from our experiences. 3, how to locate and engage authentic partners. 4, how using project-based learning as an extremely powerful conduit for industry partnerships can be applied to your school. 5, useful tools for collaboration with industry partners. And 6, focusing on professional skills, because the industry is.
So talking a bit about the why, we really value authentic career readiness learning for our students. It's pretty easy to look around and realize that today's jobs are not the jobs of yesterday. They're not, and tomorrow's jobs are not the jobs available right now. The landscape is changing so fast, and we need to be preparing our students in a way that they're going to be able to adapt to those changes. Our learners are not the same learners that we are, especially in education. If we are in education working as professional adults, we probably were the success stories of a traditional schooling approach. And we need to recognize that most of our students, that's not what's going to work best for them. And so we need to think about where they are and what their needs are as learners. We know that students, especially high school students, tend to be very social creatures, and they learn best when they're allowed to learn together. And finding ways to leverage those relationships that they have with each other to mimic professional relationships and allow them to practice what professional collaboration, professional relationships look like now, so that they have those skills and those tools available for them in the future. Positive relationships are everything for improving learning, and this is very central to the teacher-student relationship. And so adopting an instructional model that really puts that relationship at the center and provides a lot of support for making a strong professional relationship. Also, developing conduits to create relationships between students and industry representatives, other trusted adults who can serve as mentors and collaborators for students even from early ages. Connecting our content to student passions and to what's relevant. When we see the passion of a student's interest overlap with something that's relevant for their lives now or in the near future, that's when students really dig in. They think they take on learning as their own, and that you can really make huge strides in terms of their growth and improvement.
So what have we learned so far? We have 3 points that we'd like to talk about with you, and the first one being capitalizing on opportunities to collaborate. So we all know that not every situation starts as a collaborative relationship, or even with intent to collaborate. But every new interaction does have the potential to be that collaborative relationship. For example, during a tour of a local business that was interested in partnering with our school, an opportunity presented itself that I'd like to talk to you about. Jim Law, who's the CEO of a company called Mohawk Cabinet, asked if we could help him with a service manual that he was going to be using in a pitch to Sam's Club of Walmart fame. Unfortunately, what they possessed at Mohawk Cabinet in manufacturing prowess, the folks at Mohawk lacked in 21st century digital skills, and that would be self-proclaimed. So I asked Jim if he'd allow my students to have a crack at this manual. And this was on a Tuesday, and he agreed, sure, I'll let your kids have a crack at it, but you got to have it done by Monday of the following week, which was a challenge. So went back to the school, and I asked for some volunteers and students through an announcement, and the next thing you know, our kids took that incomplete, half-typed, half-handwritten manual and turned it into a website that could be accessed by scanning a sticker on the side of the machine that Jim was building. The kids also translated it into Spanish as well, which was an added bonus. Bringing it back to Jim, as you can imagine, who didn't have to type this thing up or have any of his teammates do it, Jim was ecstatic. And the PTAC created manual was on its way to Arkansas to be in front of the executives of Sam's Club and Walmart. So when you hear of the company name Mohawk Cabinet, what does that make you think of? That little interaction brought Jim back. Jim was so impressed, he wanted to see what our little school could do with the rest of his website, which contained basically just their address and a couple of photos of the actual brick and mortar shop. Jim came to the school, presented his company, or presented about his company to our kids, to the whole school, and gave our students full license to do what they needed to do to bring his business into the 21st century. So let me ask you again, when you hear the name Mohawk Cabinet, what does that make you think of? Cabinets, right? You'd think that this company made cabinets. That's what we all thought, but we were wrong. In fact, Mohawk Cabinet Company was a high-style freezer type of ice cream freezer maker that evolved into a company that manufactured boutique parts to support these vintage freezers and the creation of the newer freezers that were based on these models, and even developed modern alternatives to serving ice cream. So as you can see here is a picture of the cabinet, they used to call it, and from the one of the many but very old catalogs that Jim used to use to sell his products. So remember this machine? This was actually an innovative way to serve soft ice cream that minimized risk of contamination and reduced cleaning of internal parts and separated the ice cream from the actual metal and plastic parts inside the machine. That helped keep the machine clean and reduce the amount of work that actually had to go into daily upkeep. Parts was the key, and the students knew it. Our students immediately asked if they can make some suggestions for a different name for their web presence, and if they could create a mascot, because you know every great brand needs an iconic mascot or an image to associate with the company. So they came up with this little snowman that you see here holding a wrench and an ice cream. That made sense to the students. Up until now, Jim's company was sending out catalogs like Sears and Roebuck. But if you weren't on the mailing list, you didn't get a catalog. If you were on a mailing list, you did. So if you weren't participating in that mailing list or getting it delivered, well, your parts were not frozen and your freezer stayed broken. And Jim, of course, agreed. All the students got to work. They created frozenparts.com. They monetized, globalized, and Googleized Jim's little upstate New York ice cream freezer business. That's right. They made it searchable and optimizable. And Jim loved every single second of it. Of course, because we increased his sales by thousands of dollars each month, but also because of the new energy around his brand. He, of course, brought us a present to the school. And you guessed it, it was our very own ice cream machine. And he continued to drop off the best ice cream in the county, which was Miko Mud. And all of the teachers and students gained 10 pounds, and we did it happily. And Jim was so thankful for the innovation of the students in helping them redesign their company. In turn, Jim asked 3 of our students to continue on with him as interns, paid interns. And for some, it was the first paycheck they'd ever received. Yep, you heard right. He paid his interns, and we had to help teach those students how to deposit their paychecks. The second part of what we have learned is developing that elevator pitch to an audience that might not have any idea about what kind of school you are, much less any insight into education trends as they are in the 21st century. As you can tell from the previous story about Jim Law and his amazing frozen parts, having your elevator pitch ready and your mind open for business partnership is an absolute must. I want to share a very quick story about how having our elevator pitch ready led to an additional partnership. We were lucky enough to have an executive from the Stewart's shops, the Stewart's family, made famous by the Stewart's shops, very famous in upstate New York. They are convenience store, small grocery, gas, and a community hub, and very philanthropical. These folks from Stewart's visited our school for a performance that they were sponsoring. But before leaving that day, the CEO of Stewart's was pitched by myself and a student, the student's part being the most important, to become a partner in our next project. The CEO was ecstatic. He loved the idea and quickly came back with a project for our students in our business class. And he wanted to know how our students could take Stewart's international. He wanted to task the students with developing, quote, international Stewart's. And as you can see, our students jumped in and did pitches for different countries around the world: Brazil, Korea, Japan, China, South America. And the folks at Stewart's absolutely loved the insight and the input, and our students got exposed to authentic business partners with authentic feedback, sometimes difficult feedback and very real world feedback about what they believe would work and wouldn't. But it was an extremely meaningful experience. And then finally, third part of what we have learned, and maybe our most powerful part, was our Chamber of Commerce partner. Maybe our most powerful partner was not a business partner at all in the sense of retail or manufacturing. However, they were the gateway to all partners. After growing our school during the first year, it became increasingly more difficult for me as a principal to keep up with engaging business partners. After a trip to Nashville, I was inspired by the work that the Nashville Academies were doing with a group called Pencil. Pencil was the curator of partnerships for the academies, and it was immediately clear after that visit that I needed a middleman, or as it were, a middlewoman. Through an already established relationship with our chamber, our superintendent served on their board. We hired them to consult with us by allocating one of their employees as a full-time business liaison. Enter Nicole Walrath. Nicole was a recently graduated MBA student whose dreams of working in finance and stars in her eyes would be immediately dashed by falling in love with the world of education and serving students. Nicole worked with teachers to establish Workplace Wednesdays, work-based learning tours, skills mapping, training, mentoring, and most of all, she was a conduit for partners to create authentic projects that our students would passionately participate in. Nicole's office was even in the middle of our teacher's office. She was, for all intents and purposes, one of our staff members and an extremely important part of our school by creating and teeing up these relationships and opportunities for our students to have an authentic partner. How do you engage the local chamber? That's a great question. Sometimes getting in the door is the most difficult step. Step one would be join the Chamber of Commerce. Look for ways to engage with the chamber in projects. Currently, we at K-21 or K-12 Destinations Career Academies are engaged in a partnership with the National Chamber of Commerce to connect with state and local chambers to bring opportunities to our partner schools with businesses, very similar to what Nicole did, and we're doing it just on a national scale. Other ways you can connect with your chambers is very similar to this example I'm sharing here with coming from Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, they're piloting a collaborative initiative between the U.S. Chamber, Tallow, and our local schools. The Pennsylvania Chamber was extremely proud to share this tool. However, they didn't have the best pipeline to get it into the school's hands. So bingo, opportunity for us. We knew that we could help them share this website, which essentially shows what are the jobs in a student's chosen field, what are those prospects, how much money can somebody expect to make, a student, how long to pay off student loans. They can find key information they need to make to make a solid choice on a career path, and they can use it essentially as a resource that can be embedded right into the school. The Pennsylvania Chamber was excited to partner with us, not only just to distribute this resource to students, but also as a way to connect their businesses in Pennsylvania to our schools. So, how do we locate and engage with potential partners? First, relationships. Those are the most important aspect and probably the most used skill that I've used to establish partnerships with our schools. The first thing you do is you tap into your staff members and your board members, other administrators that work at your school or associated with the school to find out if they have relationships or connections with the businesses and the local industries that you want to partner with. And you'd be surprised to find out how many people have significant others, family members, brothers and sisters, that neighbors that already work or potentially own and run these partnerships that you're looking for. Use that resource first. You might even find that that's enough to get you going. Second, use your Center for Economic Growth and other workforce initiatives that are rolled out through your chambers of commerce. Next, allow partners to choose their level of participation. And this is really important because not all businesses can commit like Mohawk Cabinet. Not every business has a Jim Law that's willing to turn their entire marketing department, if they have one, over to a bunch of 15 and 16-year-olds. I wish there were, but that's just not the case. So meet them where they are. Allow them to choose their level of participation. Maybe it's a tour. Maybe it's just a class presentation. It's one person to come in to talk about a day in the life. Many times businesses are nervous about how to interact with kids today, so you can help them navigate this. And it will be another takeaway for the businesses and industry leaders to help train them with the emerging workforce and the trends that come along with it. At the Destinations Career Academies at K-12, we're actually offering a handbook of how-tos for our partners and our schools to help them learn how to interact with each other. And then finally, don't underestimate the power of students to connect. Sometimes the adults just need to get out of the way. Let the students do the heavy lifting. And many times, the joy of working with the kids is enough to keep the business coming back for the next activity. We always had student ambassadors lead our tours, regardless if it was the governor or a local business owner. Our students said it best and most accurately. And looking back on our successes, it was those student-led tours and interactions that led to the most beneficial partnerships moving forward. Okay, at this time, I'd like to introduce my colleague and partner in development of all things project-based learning and industry partnerships, Heather Buskirk. Heather is a nationally board certified teacher and was an original implementer of project-based learning in a very interesting classroom in a school where she was able to have a self-contained project-based learning school for seniors, which evolved into the PTech model and then into the virtual model here at Destinations Career Academy K-12. Heather?
Thanks, Mike. So I want to talk a bit about how this looks instructionally, bringing these partnerships back into the classroom. And one of the big things that bringing in an industry partner into student work does is it allows the teacher to pivot from being that gatekeeper, the audience of all student work, to now the coach and facilitator. When students aren't doing work because the teacher asked, but because there's an interesting challenge that impacts a real partner in their community, when there's a real adult, because often students don't see the teacher as a real adult, but there's a real outside adult now in the conversation, the pressure is on, and the teacher now gets to be the person that helps the student get there, helps them practice and refine their communication techniques, whether it's written or spoken, polish their presentations, gives them a purpose for checking their work much more carefully, and helping them gain new skills. So the teacher shifts from being that keeper of content, especially in our digital world where so much of recall knowledge is accessible at everyone's fingertips, to really a facilitator who's helping students learn to access and manipulate knowledge. Their focus is less on lecturing and delivering, not that lecturing doesn't have its place, but it's not the focus, it's not the center of the work. They're more focused on managing and monitoring learning for the student. The teacher's not working in isolation. Gone are the days where the teacher closes their door for 6 periods of the day and opens it up at the end of the day. Teachers are working not just with each other to create projects cross-curricularly, but now working with those industry partners to figure out where does the content of the course that they teach really live in the real world. If I have to teach, trigonometric functions, who uses that in the world? Where does that come into play? And how can I bring the relevance and reality into a project and back into my classroom through a business partnership? Instead of thinking about their work as curating curriculum, the teachers are really thinking about, okay, scaffolding the learning. If I know my students have this challenge to create this website, how do I help them gain the skills that they need of web design, of organizing their thinking, and thinking through the next steps to get it there and get it out there? So when we design projects, we design them with industry partners in mind, even if we don't have the actual industry partner. So we want to design projects that at their center have an interesting challenge or opportunity that's posed to the students. And these challenges get the students to bite in on the content that they need to learn for that course. And this is a really obvious fit in a lot of career readiness courses because so much of career readiness already relates to the real world in a much more direct way than what you might find in other core content courses. So let's look at a couple of these project examples to see what I'm talking about. So for example, we've designed a project around hosting an Earth Day festival. Earth Day Festival is great, and this project could be used as is, where students in a marketing class are doing some event promotion for an Earth Day, but you could very easily swap out Sycamore Springs Earth Day Festival with any event that's going on in your community around your school. Using the same idea, using the same structures, now make it real. Bring in a real community partner, bring in the parks department, bring in a development group, bring in some organization that is looking to put on a festival or event, or make it a school-based event. Schools have events all the time, put your students in charge of marketing and promoting it, and make that part of the marketing course. It allows you to teach the real content. It brings in a reason for having those partnerships. Why would you want an outside adult? Maybe bringing in someone who's a marketing professional to look at the student's work, to kind of mentor them along the way, maybe provide feedback, or just be an audience for the final student product. Another example from a business class, business and marketing, where students are helping a fictitious company out of a jam, looking at their code of conduct and ethics statements. While there's a fictitious scenario for students to kind of ponder and wrestle with, this could easily be replaced with a partnership with any industry company who's willing to bite into this type of a project, where students are looking at what ethics means in that industry. Because ethics has a specific meaning in healthcare, in business, in IT, and what does that look like, and how would they guide employees in that work? And finally, healthcare explorations class, planning for emergencies. So again, students are given the challenge to develop an emergency preparedness plan for natural disasters. It could easily be changed to fit a preparation plan for a local hospital, or for even just a local manufacturing company or a community center. Really, anything could be swapped in and build the real need for connecting that industry partner. In order to make these connections seamless and to let students model and practice professional behavior and professional skills in the virtual world, we've found that there's a few tools that are really, really useful for us that sit at kind of the center of some of our work. The first one I want to talk a little bit about is NEPRIS, especially in a virtual school where we may not always have access to a human that's right there on site. NEPRIS has been a great tool for connecting with partners that could live anywhere in the country and bringing them into our class through video, through live chats. It allows you to bring in a guest speaker without necessarily having to get them physically to your school, wherever you are. If you're a small rural school and you don't have the opportunity to access someone from a larger IT corporation, this might be your way to bring someone in. And this allows students to maybe find to find adult experts that might not be geographically near them, and a way for a teacher to bring in some content that might really connect and drive home why the content they're teaching now in the class is relevant for the real world. Another tool we use is Tallo. Tallo is like professional social marketing for students. So think LinkedIn, but appropriate for kids. It allows them to practice putting themselves out there in a professional manner, in a safe situation. So students can kind of show off their skills. It allows them to put out project work that they might complete as part of a class to show off what they're capable of doing, to think about how do they manage and monitor their own social media professional presence. Showing a little bit more of how students would create a profile, and then ultimately this can be connected with business partners and allow for students to get access to new opportunities or scholarships, and to see from where they are now, what steps do they need to take to reach their desired future. So if they have a career goal in mind, Tallo might be one way to connect them with pathways to help them get there. And finally, connecting students to students and to the teacher, we've been using Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is not an education-only tool. It's a platform that's used by companies. I personally manage a virtual team, and I manage my team entirely through MS Teams. We meet there, we collaborate there, we share documents there and resources, we have all sorts of tough conversations, and do the day-to-day work of our jobs in MS Teams. So MS Teams is a great tool for teaching that level of virtual professional skills to students. It allows them to share files and collaborate, communicate both synchronously in live chats or in video or just audio conversations, and also asynchronously, if they need to leave messages and respond to them at different times. Students who may have less traditional schedules or have work schedules that make it more difficult for them to collaborate with their classmates, MS Teams has allowed us to provide an avenue for them to do it. Because ultimately, we want our students to be prepared for their future. And this means not just knowing content knowledge and content skills, but broadly, what are the professional skills that are going to help set them apart? Teaching them to communicate, collaborate, to manage their work in a virtual world or brick and mortar is going to help all of them really thrive in their future. So thinking about how we give them opportunities to practice these skills, how we as adults are modeling these skills, and how we're assessing them very explicitly will help students develop them. And having the industry partners coming in to provide new models for how these professional skills are used by adults. It's not just your teachers who are telling you that you need to use complete sentences in your email. There are real adults out there who know that that's valuable and can help bring those lessons home. So hopefully we've been able to give you some ideas on the ways you might engage industry partners or any authentic partners in your classroom to really lift student learning. If you'd like to learn more about the work that Mike and I do, please check out destinationsacademy.com/school districts.